Hello and thank you for stopping by. If you're looking forward to learning 10 mistakes that will actually affect the success rate of your job interview, then this course is for you. As you go about interviewing for a job, it could be quite a daunting experience. You might be stressed out, you have no idea where to begin, where to start, what to do and what not to do. This course will teach you what not to do as you go about your interview in order to make sure that you successfully get that job. So let's just simply get right to it and start off with mistake number one: not doing sufficient background check or research for the company that you're applying for. Many candidates, as they go about the interview process, once they get a call from the HR or the recruiter and they get an interview scheduled, they just simply brush it up on their own set of skills, their own expertise and know-hows, predicting the questions that the HR or the recruiter is going to ask them during the interview. But the first thing that you should be doing is doing research on the company that you're actually applying for. What kind of services do they do? What kind of products do they sell? What kind of domains they are highly active in? The main reason for that is that even if you're quite familiar with your own job title, you should be familiar with your potential employer. It shows interest, it shows dependability, it shows basically that you are a very professional candidate who's able to learn and has proper approach or view on the process of learning. Because if you're simply walking into the interview based on whatever knowledge that you have, based on your job title, and you have no background whatsoever of the company that you're applying for, you might be bombarded with questions from the HR or the recruiter that you'll not be able to answer. For example, they might ask you, why did you choose our company to hire you, for example? Or what do you know about our company? This is an often asked question, guys. What do you know about X employer? So assuming that you have done your research, you'll be able to respond stating that you're familiar with the services, their industry, their domains, their competitors. It gives you leverage as someone who's quite done their background check and they really want that job. They're willing to put the effort to learn more about a company before they go through the interview process. On the other hand, if you have no answer to those questions, you're just simply slicing down your chances for success. So the first thing that you need to do is a thorough research on the company that you're applying for. This should include what do they do, what services do they provide, what industries they are in, and what is their current status in terms of the hiring process, for example. Are they actively hiring, or they just simply have a vacancy or two that they're trying to fulfill? Also, you should, well, this is kind of secondary, that you have an idea about their competitors. So if you're going to a company and you're going for a potential employer and you have an idea about who's competing with them, and you just simply, highlight it through the interview that you're familiar with the industry, they're familiar with your potential employer, they know their, let's say, effect on the market, and you know their competitors, and yet you chose them to be your future employer. So that shows commitment in terms of you as a prospect for that job. So mistake number one, not doing sufficient research on the company that you're applying for. Mistake number two, taking the job description that you know for granted. If you are, for example, an accountant and you've been hired with a company and you have sufficient experience in the field of accounting, and you just simply apply to another company, assuming that the job description is going to be exactly the same, that's a big pitfall that you might just simply cut down your chances of getting hired. Why? Even though that you are a professional accountant, you have sufficient experience, but the job description might vary from one company to the other. It might be tweaked up a bit. There could be some additional responsibilities, there could be quite less responsibilities. Often some let's say titles or positions, they would require an individual to have a multidisciplinary experience. So make sure that you are familiar with the job description. You went through, let's say, the website, or you have done your research. For example, you went on Google, you put in accountants working in X and Y and Z industry, just to have an idea about your actual day-to-day tasks. What are you going to be doing? Just also to avoid you being disappointed, most importantly. Because some individuals, once they go about the interview process, they will assume that the job description just simply remains the same throughout different industries. Like an accountant working for a coffee shop will be doing the same processes for an accountant working in a law firm. Well, it doesn't work that way. It's not going to be the same. So make sure that the interview that you're going to conduct for that position also aligns with your own expectations for that job description. So make sure that you are familiar with the job description, you know exactly what the job requirements are, what's going to be demanded of you, and just have an idea about the potential questions related to your field that let's say the interviewer, the recruiter, or the HR is going to ask you. As an accountant working in the oil and gas industry, you'll be asked a specific set of questions. Try to research those. Prepare yourself for your job title and for your job description, such that once you walk in the interview, you are familiar, you have expectations of what are the possible questions that the HR or the interviewer is going to ask you. Nothing is worse than walking into the interview, being asked questions, so what should we hire you for this role? And you're asked specific questions related to the job description and you have no idea how to answer. So you can tell the outcome from that interview on the spot. So to avoid disappointment and unnecessary disappointment, you should be prepared in advance. Read the job description, go through the job description. It should be on the website of your employer. If not, for whatever reason that is, even though it should be, you can research the job title in that specific industry. If you are a software developer working, for example, in gaming, search that. Software developer, gaming industry, job description. What are basically the responsibilities? Then you are prepared. You have an idea about the position. You have an idea what is going to be asked of you once you're boarding that company. And in case if you do have any questions related to a specific scope of works within that job description, you can highlight it in the interview. Oh, hey. Mistake number 3. Never look at your watch during an interview or your phone. If you're being interviewed by a company, a recruiter, or an HR professional, and you're sitting in front of them, the worst thing that you can do is just simply keep looking at your watch as if you have to be somewhere else. It shows lack of interest in the position, it shows disrespect for the person in front of you, and it shows basically that you are not that interested in the position or whatever is taking place right now. You're not interested in the conversation. So some individuals, let's say candidates, they think it's okay. Look at the watch, pick up a phone. No. Walk into the interview because you mean work. You're being serious about that position. You're looking forward to claiming that position. So you should be very serious about it. So don't look at your watch. Keep your phone on silent mode. Do not pick up calls. Or you put it on vibrate and put it in your pocket. But don't put your phone on the table and start swiping in the middle of the conversation, or taking a look at Google, or just simply flipping through your Facebook account as you go through the interview process. You'll be quite surprised, but these things do happen. And I came across individuals and professionals at different levels, even executives, who can actually do that mistake. So make sure that you're committed to the process. You walk into the interview and you're showing the person in front of you that, you know what, I mean business, I mean work, and I'm very serious about what I'm going to present, what I'm going to offer to the company, and I'm not distracted, and I'm not just simply trying to see how things go, rather that you are committed to the process. So make sure, guys, that you don't have any distractions. Don't look at your watch, don't look at your phone. Just get distracted and engaging in something else while the person in front of you is actually engaging with you. If a recruiter is asking you questions and they see that your response is looking at the watch, you can tell it shows the lack of interest that you're having in that position. So avoid these slight mistakes that can have a huge impact on the success rate for your job application. Mistake number 4, talking too much and talking too personal. So when you are in the interview process, you should be avoiding excessive talking, especially related to things that are not within the communication lines between you and the interviewer. For example, Within the interview process, you should be talking about your lunch, your dinner, your plans after the interview, or what you have for breakfast, or what is your friend doing waiting outside of the office just simply for you to leave. All of those details, they are irrelevant to the interview process, and they might harm your potential to fit the profile as the ideal candidate for that position. So make sure that you are engaging with the interviewer based on questions and answers, such that once you ask a question, respond, express yourself, elaborate your point of view, pass on your concerns, pass on the questions that you have about the job, the company, any specific, let's say, scenario within the interview process or concern that you have within your application. That should be the main highlight. That should be the atmosphere of the communication that you have between you and the interviewer. Avoid excessive talking, and especially sharing personal details that are not relevant to the process, because you are trying to portray yourself as someone who's quite professional, as a best fit for the role. So you don't want to have details such as your lunch, your dinner, your plans with your friends that seem too friendly, too personal, that the person in front of you, the person interviewing you, assumes that you are not taking the interview quite too seriously. And you're not taking the job candidacy or the process quite too seriously, even though that you are, and you're trying to be friendly, but it could be portrayed in a different way. So avoid talking too much, simply stick to replying to the questions that you're being asked. At the same time, ask questions related to the job description, the company, any concern that you have, any inquiry that you have related to the entire process. And avoid deviating to personal details and communications that go beyond the setting or the atmosphere of the interview. Mistake number 5, bad-mouthing your previous employer. If you are someone transitioning to a new position and the interviewer asks you, why have you left your previous company? And the first thing that you do is start talking about the negative atmosphere, how you didn't like your manager, how you didn't like the work, how the company was really bad, on that kind of, line of events. It will not reflect good on you, because it shows a lack of sense of professionalism. Even though you could be 100% right, but keep in mind that the person in front of you is talking to you for the first time. And if the first thing that comes out of your mouth as a response is negative or negative words targeting your previous employer, that will not reflect well on your application process. On the other hand, you can just simply reply or respond saying that you chose to leave your previous employer because you're looking for further development, further growth that you weren't receiving back then, and you wanted to take your career to the next level. Now that's a professional response. That shows that you are a potential candidate who's willing to put some time and effort to develop himself within the company setting. So you can see the difference, guys. Instead of just simply saying negative words about, or just talking negatively about your previous employer to show your interviewer that they did you wrong, it will not reflect well on you. So avoid bad-mouthing your previous employer, in front of your potential employer, because it doesn't show a sense of professionalism. Also, it shows that at one point, let's say down the road, if you chose to leave your potential employer to pursue a different opportunity, you might be doing the same thing in the following interview process. So that creates question marks on your application process. So avoid bad-mouthing your previous employer. Mistake number 6, overconfidence. Now, there's a fine line between confident and being overconfident. If someone is quite sure of the knowledge he has, the skill he has, that basically is considered to be confident. However, if someone does not possess the skill, does not possess the knowledge, and still acknowledges himself as someone who's expert in it, is being overconfident, even though he has no basis for that confidence. So in an interview process, if you're asked with questions that challenge your knowledge and challenge your set of skills, feel free to be confident in your response, such that you're just simply stating and answering those questions truly. However, if you come across a question related to the job description, for example, that you are not familiar with, or you don't have a response to, there is no need, first of all, to lie or to just simply come up with random answers in order to show the interviewer in front of you that you know it all, and it will not reflect well because you'll be assumed or portrayed as someone who's being overconfident without any willingness to learn or develop. On the other hand, if you're confident with whatever knowledge that you have, with the set of skills that you have, and you come across a question within the interview that you're not familiar with, you can just simply tell the interviewer, well, I don't have the answer to that question, but I'm willing to learn and I'm willing to do some research in order to be able to answer it in the future. So that shows that you are able to develop yourself, you have the willingness to learn. At the same time, you are confident with your set of skills that you have right now, and you're confident with not knowing. So that, guys, there are different levels of confidence we're talking about here. You could be confident with knowing what you know, what you possess, what your skills are, and you could be confident with not knowing as well. And you put yourself out there for the willingness to learn, being able to learn and develop yourself. And that requires confidence as well. And that's what the interviewer is looking for. Someone who's confident in his set of skills, someone who's confident in his own knowledge and expertise, but also someone who knows that they're not perfect and they have the willingness to learn. So, mistake number 6, do not be overconfident. And you know what they say, you have only one chance for a first impression. And mistake number 7 is not dressing up. Assume you're going to a high-profile event. Would you walk into wearing flip-flops, shorts, and beachwear? Of course not. You should dress up for the occasion. And the same thing applies for the interview process. If you're going to a prospective employer, you should be dressing up, putting in the proper suit, tie, proper hair, proper beard, trim, whatever it is they want to do. Just make sure that you are quite presentable, putting your best foot forward such that once you walk into the interview, to the entire office setting, the interview process, if you're able to turn heads, it means you have done it right. Why? It shows your sense of commitment to the process, sense of responsibility, and the effort that you're putting in order to present yourself in the best way possible. And that shows dedication, and that shows professionalism. On the other hand, if someone walks into the office and they're basically not dressing up, scruffy hair, didn't shave, shirt barely tucked in, and the blazer or the jacket is just simply, it has stains on it, what's their first impression, honestly? Most probably, the first impression is going to be something that's completely not related to a potential candidate applying for a job, right? So you have only one chance for the first impression. So make sure it counts, dress up properly, dress up for the occasion, and put your best foot forward to avoid this mistake that's often neglected and that could cost you your potential job. Mistake number 8, acting desperate. You could be the most qualified professional for that job, the best suited individual with the top-notch set of skills for the job. However, within the interview, you act desperate for the position that your potential employer loses interest in your candidacy. Many professionals, they do this. You could be in a difficult position where you're trying your best to get a job, but mark my words, acting desperate for that job doesn't help your application process at all. First of all, you could be selling yourself short. If that potential employer might be giving you or offering you a salary X, based on your approach being out of desperation, he will drop it down to even half. That is okay, and it happened, and I've seen it happen before. So avoid desperation, because it means you're selling yourself too short. Don't do this. At the same time, it shows that you are not that up for the challenge. That when things go wrong and you're just simply being too desperate for that position, for that title, no matter what your circumstances are, you could just simply apply for the job in a professional manner, put your best foot forward, demonstrate your set of skills, demonstrate your knowledge, and put it on the table. And if that's enough, you'll get the job. If not, it's not the right employer. Keep looking. But acting desperately for a specific position is not going to accelerate the recruiting process, is not going to help your odds of successfully finding or receiving that job. On the other hand, it might actually blow off that job or reduce the potential offer that you might be getting. In other words, selling yourself short. So it's a critical mistake, guys. Even if you are really eager to join the company and you're looking forward for that position and you want to be part of that team and it could be the best company in the world, but joining an interview with an act of desperation severely limits the success rate for your candidacy. So put your best foot forward, put your true potential forward, your knowledge, your set of skills on the table as clear and as transparent as possible. Then it's up to the employer to appreciate what you're offering, to appreciate your potential, to appreciate your skills. That's a very, very important point. So avoid this critical mistake. Mistake number 9, not asking relevant questions. Towards the end of the interview, the recruiter might ask you, do you have any questions? If you simply respond by no questions, it might show that you don't have interest in the current interview process or the position as a whole, and you're just simply looking forward to leaving the interview, even though you might not mean it, but it's portrayed as such. So you could be asking questions related to the job description, the company profile, the work environment, what are the departments available at the office, who are the line managers, what kind of projects do they have at the time being. It just simply shows that you're interested in the interview process and you're looking forward to carrying on the conversation and learning about the company. It shows that sense of commitment towards the entire process. Even though you might be, let's say, tired towards the end of the interview process and you're just simply looking forward to exiting and just leaving, where you have done everything correct from the time you walked in to the time you walk out, but you make sure that you finish the process completely. So ask questions, a question or two related to the job description, the company, line managers, the hierarchy, just to make sure that your interest in the job is actually portrayed to your interviewer. And the final mistake that we're going to be addressing in this course is not asking what's next. Many candidates, as they go about the process, they expect to be bombarded by questions, like being interrogated in the interview. But when it comes to them asking questions to the interviewer to clarify the process, what to expect next after the interview, is there a second round of interview? When will I hear back from you? What shall I be expecting? Am I going to be expecting a phone call or an email? When shall I follow up back? All of these questions, they are often neglected towards the interview. And it's very important that you shouldn't, because most probably, actually certainly, once you leave the interview without asking those questions, and let's say the recruiter did not give you this information, you'll be walking off and you start wondering, when are you going to hear back from the company or the recruiter, and when are they going to get back to you? And you'll be wondering, shall I call them now? Shall I call them tomorrow? When shall I call them? When am I going to hear from them? Shall I just simply apply for something else or not? Or just keep on waiting for their response? So to avoid that cycle, which is quite unnecessary and avoidable, at the end of the interview, you can ask the recruiter or the HR the following. So what happens next? So after the interview, is there a second round of interview? And would I be expecting a phone call regarding the process, if it went well or not? And in case I didn't get a feedback or an email or phone call, when do you think is a good time for me to follow up with you? Shall I give you a call? And can I have your business card or your contact details where I can just simply get in contact with in order to pick up on the hiring process? So make sure that towards the end of the interview, you don't just simply walk out. Try to get the contact details of your recruiter. It could be a business card, could be an email, it could be a phone number. Get a point of contact that you can actually communicate with in order to follow up in the process. Because if you simply walk out and you try to come back later on to inquire what happened, you might be talking to the wrong person. So make sure that you have a focal point who is able to tell you the updates and the status of your application process. Ask when or what's coming next. Is there any more interviews? Will I be hearing from you through call? Are you going to be sending me an email with the updates? If so, when? So ask the what's next questions. Make sure that you ask them. So once you go about the interview process, it's critical, guys. Towards the end of the interview, before you leave, make sure that you're quite friendly, approachable, and you can just simply ask the HR or the recruiter, okay, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure meeting you and talking to you. Now, can you just please tell me how would the process go next? So we finished the interview. Is there a second round of interviews? Or would I be getting, let's say, the feedback through email or call? And if so, when? And in case I don't hear back from you, is it possible to get back to have your phone card, your business card, your contact details or email to just simply follow up with? And certainly they will say yes, because they're part of the process. So once you get those details, you can just simply ask them, when do you think is the best time for me to reach back to you in case I didn't hear back from you soon or as per the stipulated time? They will tell you, for example, 3 weeks from now, 2 weeks from now, 1 day from now. It varies from one company to the other. But the key take here, guys, is avoid leaving the interview without having contact details for your application process and not clearly knowing what happens next after you are done with the interview process. So mistake number 10, which is a very critical mistake, is not asking what comes next.